All right, so get ready because today we are going deep into recommendation systems.
Yeah.
Like the algorithms that just seem to know what you want before you even thought about it.
Right.
Like how does Spotify seem to just nail your Discover Weekly?
Mm-hmm.
Or how does Netflix know exactly what you want to watch?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to find out today. I have a ton of research here. Some from Spotify, some insights from Netflix, all about how these things work.
Cool.
And honestly, there's a lot more to it than I think people realize.
Yeah, it's easy to think of these systems as just kind of like, if you like this, you'll love that, but there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, I bet. So, for someone who doesn't really know much about algorithms, how would you break it down? Like, what are the main pieces of a recommendation system?
So imagine you're trying to find a new book.
Okay.
You could ask a friend with similar tastes, and that's kind of like collaborative filtering.
Okay.
The system is looking at patterns in what users like you enjoy. Or you could browse for books with themes or authors you've liked before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more like content-based filtering, focusing on the characteristics of what you've already liked.
So it's like a combo of your best friend, Andy, that librarian who just knows exactly what you'll like.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And often the most powerful systems use a hybrid approach, blending the two.
Okay.
But it's not just about giving you more of the same. It gets interesting when you consider things like discovery and supporting diverse content.
So by making sure that you're not just stuck in an echo chamber of your own taste.
Exactly. I like that. Spotify did research on a system called Mostra.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is they were able to increase the visibility of lesser-known artists by 15%.
Wow.
Without sacrificing user satisfaction.
Really?
15%. Yes, so think about how cool that is for both music lovers and the artists themselves.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So they're basically like fine-tuning these algorithms to try to achieve multiple things, not just like pleasing the user, but also like thinking about the bigger picture.
Right. They actually visualize this tension with a graph that shows the interplay between discovery, boost, and exposure.
Interesting.
So a constant balancing act to make sure everybody benefits.
I can imagine that would be really tricky.
Yeah.
So Spotify's really putting a lot of thought into this. But what about Netflix? That seems a little more complicated, right?
Yeah, Netflix actually goes beyond those simple star ratings.
Okay.
Because, 5 stars from one person could mean something totally different to another person.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So how do they actually figure out what you would enjoy?
They use this really clever ranking function,
Okay.
and it balances personalized predictions with overall popularity.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. Imagine you love obscure documentaries about, I don't know, underwater basket weaving.
Okay, that's pretty specific, but sure.
Well, the system knows you're going to love anything about underwater basket weaving, no matter how niche it is.
Okay.
But if it only recommended you those, you'd get bored pretty quickly.
Yeah, probably.
So the ranking function balances that with things that are generally popular and well-received, even if they're not directly related to underwater basket weaving.
Okay.
So it finds that sweet spot between your tastes and what is just generally considered good.
Gotcha. So it's not just throwing the most popular stuff at everyone. They are actually taking your preferences into account.
Right.
But how do you even know what those preferences are?
Well, this is where all the data comes in. And Netflix analyzes a lot of data.
I bet.
Everything you do on the platform, what you watch, when you watch, how long you watch, even if you rewind or fast forward, it all gets fed back into the system.
Oh.
And here's the cool part. They use machine learning, so those algorithms are constantly learning and refining themselves based on all of that data.
So it's like they have a team of detectives just constantly analyzing your moves on Netflix, trying to figure out what you like.
Basically, yeah.
Wow. But this is all supposed to be making my experience better.
Right. All this data crunching is designed to do just that.
It's kind of mind-blowing how much information they're looking at.
It is, and it goes beyond the obvious stuff, too, like your viewing history. Netflix even factors in what time of day you're watching, what device you're using.
No way, seriously.
Yeah.
So they know, my Friday night pizza and movie routine.
Yeah, that's the power of data.
Wow.
But it's not just about collecting it, it's about using it effectively.
Okay.
And this is where A/B testing comes in. Imagine you're trying to bake the perfect chocolate chip cookie.
Right.
You might test different amounts of sugar or baking times to see what results in the best cookie, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what Netflix does with their algorithms.
So they're always experimenting to see what works best.
Exactly.
Interesting.
A great example is their top 10 marathon. Okay. They tested different ways of presenting their top 10 list to see what resonated with viewers. They're constantly tweaking things behind the scenes to try to improve that user experience.
So it really is like a giant lab back there, just constantly experimenting.
It is.
Wild.
And it's all to help you discover content you're going to love.
So at the end of the day, it's all about making our lives easier and more fun.
Exactly. But of course, there are two sides to every coin, right?
Oh, I bet.
We've talked about some of these benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also some things to keep in mind when we're thinking about these systems.
Oh, yeah, like what happens to all that data they're collecting? And like, are the algorithms becoming too powerful?
Those are great questions. And we'll definitely dive into those after a quick break. So stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back. And we've been talking about all the stuff going on behind the scenes with recommendation systems. You know, from collaborative filtering to content-based filtering, and like, these algorithms are working hard.
They really are.
But right before the break, we were sort of hinting at some of the, like, potential downsides.
Yeah.
It's fun in games until the algorithm's like, predicting your breakfast order.
Well, they're not that advanced yet.
Okay, good.
But you bring up a good point. You know, these systems are meant to make our lives better.
Right.
But it's also really important to be mindful of how they're impacting us.
So, yeah, let's get into that. What are some of the things we should be thinking about?
One big thing is just the sheer volume of data these systems are collecting. We talked about how Netflix tracks like your every view and pause and rewind, but it goes way beyond that.
Okay.
Many platforms track your browsing history, where you are, even your social media activity.
Wow.
Like, that's a lot of information.
It's kind of creepy. It makes you wonder, like, who has access to all of that and what are they doing with it?
Exactly. It's really important to know the data privacy policies of the platforms that you're using.
Yeah.
And make sure you understand how your data is being handled.
So we should probably, like, actually read those terms and conditions instead of just clicking agree.
It's worth a look.
Yep, okay.
Another thing to think about is that these systems can create filter bubbles.
Okay.
So, like, if we're only exposed to the stuff that already aligns with what we like, we might miss out on different opinions or even just new experiences.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like if you only ever listen to one radio station or something, you're kind of missing out on all the other music that's out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you want to be aware of that and then, you know, try to find different viewpoints, content outside of what's just being shown to you.
So it's not just about letting the algorithm, like, decide everything for us. We should actually be choosing stuff too.
Right. Think of them more as tools, not the boss of you.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So how do we take back some of that control? Like, what can we actually do?
Well, just start by paying attention to the recommendations you're getting.
Yeah.
Are they actually things you're interested in? Or is it just leading you down some weird rabbit hole?
I've definitely had that, where I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, how did I even get here? Like, this is so random.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, don't be afraid to be critical of what you're seeing. If something doesn't feel right, just don't click on it.
Yeah, okay. So we should be more picky, not just take whatever they're giving us.
Right, and you can actually give feedback too. Like Spotify and Netflix both let you adjust your settings. You can tell them what you like, what you don't like.
Oh, really? So we're not just stuck with what they decide.
No. The more feedback you give, the better the system understands your tastes. It can give you better suggestions.
Okay.
You know, think of it like training your own personal DJ or movie person.
I like that. So it's like a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. But sometimes it feels like they're basing it on just like one random thing that I did. Like maybe I watched one cheesy rom-com and now suddenly I'm getting all these romance movies.
And that happens. It's important to remember they're still learning.
Right.
So they can kind of overreact to things sometimes.
Yeah, okay. So it's kind of on both of us, right? We have to be mindful of what we're clicking on, but they also need to get better at understanding what we actually like.
Exactly. And as they evolve, especially with all the new AI stuff, they're going to get a lot more sophisticated.
Okay. So we've been talking about how these systems work right now, but what about like the future? What are some of the things that are coming up that we should be thinking about?
One of the most exciting things is the use of generative AI.
Okay.
Imagine a system that doesn't just like recommend things that already exist, but it actually creates new personalized suggestions.
Whoa,
Like in normal language.
wow.
Like it's like a virtual assistant just like curating your whole experience.
This sounds kind of like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, well, it's closer than you might think.
Really?
We're already seeing early versions of it,
Right.
and it could completely change the way we discover and use content.
It's like having a personal assistant for all your entertainment needs.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It is. And along with all these advancements, there's also a lot more focus on what they call explainable AI.
Okay.
So basically, the system can actually tell you why it's recommending something.
So it's not just like magic.
Right. And that really helps build trust and transparency.
Yeah, I feel like I would definitely be more comfortable with these systems if I kind of understood why they were suggesting something.
It's all about giving people the power to make good choices and feel more in control of what they're doing online.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we've covered a lot, from how recommendation systems work to ethics, and even what's coming up next. But before we wrap up this whole deep dive, I have one last question for you.
Shoot.
If you could just give our listeners one piece of advice, like one key takeaway, what would it be?
Be an active, informed participant in your online experiences.
Okay.
Don't just take what the algorithms are giving you. Question those recommendations, change your settings, give feedback, and most importantly, be curious.
Yeah, I love that.
The more you understand about these systems, the better you'll be at navigating this whole online world. You'll be able to make really good choices.
Be curious, be critical,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid to take control. Words to live by, everyone. All right, so welcome back to the show. We have been talking all about recommendation systems.
Yeah, it's wild how these algorithms are everywhere online now. They really do shape a lot of what we do online.
Right. It's like they're like a little assistant or something, but they're always learning about us, you know?
Yeah. But like we were saying, it's good to keep in mind that these systems are still just tools.
Hmm.
And like any tool, they can be good or bad, I guess.
Right, exactly. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, like, what are some of the big things you think people should take away from this? How can we use these systems in a good way?
Well, I think, first off, just be really aware.
Mhm.
Like pay attention to what's being recommended and just ask yourself, do I actually want to see this?
Hmm.
Or is the algorithm just like guessing what I might want?
So it's like, be a little skeptical.
Yeah, exactly. Like don't just assume everything it gives you is good.
Right.
And also, don't be afraid to look for things yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best stuff you find is totally by chance, not because someone told you about it.
That's true. It's like we can get kind of stuck in a rut if we just watch the same stuff all the time.
Yeah, totally.
There's so much out there.
Exactly. And you can also, change those recommendations if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't be shy about changing your settings or telling those systems what you like and don't like.
It's like we can actually talk back to them, right?
Exactly. The more you tell them, the better they'll get at figuring you out.
Okay, I like that.
And, as these things get more advanced, that'll become even more important,
Yeah.
The future is all about personalization, like each person having their own unique experience.
So it's like having a personal DJ or like a movie expert who knows exactly what you like.
Yeah, it's getting closer to that.
That's cool. But like, even as it get better, it's still up to us to like understand how it all works, right?
Oh, for sure. Like what data they're using, what they're doing with it, all that stuff.
So it's not just about having fun. We got to think about what's going on behind the scenes.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, I guess.
Right. So as we wrap up this deep dive on recommendation systems, what's the one thing you want everyone to remember?
I'd say just be curious.
Okay.
Be critical. Be in control.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to question things. Look for stuff on your own. Make your voice heard.
Yeah, I love that. The future of the internet is kind of up to us.
It is.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.